I live north of the Scottish Highlands. Never hike the coastline at night. For the past 3 years now, I have been living in the north of the Scottish Highlands, and when I say north, I mean as far north as you can possibly go. I live in a region called Caithness, in the small coastal town of Thurso, which is actually the northernmost town on the British mainland. I had always wanted to live in the Scottish Highlands, which seemed a far cry from my gloomy hometown in Yorkshire, England. However, despite the beautiful mountains, amazing wildlife and vibrant culture the Highlands has to offer, I soon learned Caithness was far from the idyllic destination I was hoping for. When I first moved to Thurso, I immediately took to exploring the rugged coastline in my spare time. On the right-hand side of the town's river, there's an old ruin of a castle, but past that leads to a cliff trail around the eastern coastline. After a year or so of living here, and during the Christmas season, I decided I wanted to go on a long hike by myself along this cliff trail, with the intention of going further than I ever had before. And so, I got my backpack together, packed a lunch for myself, and headed out at around 6 a.m. The hike along the trail had taken me all day. And by the evening, I had walked so far that I actually discovered what I first thought was a ghost town. What I found was an abandoned port settlement, which had the creepiest looking disperse of old stone houses, as well as what looked like the ruins of an ancient round tower. As it turned out, this was actually the Castletown Heritage Center, a tourist spot. It seemed I had walked so far around the rugged terrain that I was now 10 miles outside of Thurso. On the other side of this settlement were the distant cliffs of Dunnet Bay, which compared to the cliffs I had already trekked along, were far grander. Although I could feel my legs finally begin to give way, and already anticipating a long journey back along the trail, I decided I was going to cross the bay and reach the cliffs, and then make my way back home. Considering what I would find there, this is the point in the journey where I should have stopped. By the time I was making my way around the bay, it had become very dark. I had already walked past more than half of the bay, but the cliffs didn't feel any closer. It was at this point when I decided I really needed to turn around, as at night, walking back along the cliff trail was going to be dangerous, and for the parts of the trail that led down to the base of the cliffs, I really couldn't afford for the tide to cut off my route. Making my way back, I tried retracing my own footprints along the beach. It was so dark by now that I needed to use my phone flashlight to find them. As I wandered through the darkness, with only the dim brightness of the flashlight to guide me, I came across something. Ahead of me, I could see a dark silhouette of something in the sand. It was too far away for my flashlight to reach, but it seemed to me that it was just a big rock, so I wasn't all too concerned. But for some reason, I wasn't 100% convinced either. The closer I get to it, the more I think it could possibly be something else. I was right on top of it now, and the silhouette didn't look as much like a rock as I originally thought. If anything, it looked more like a very big fish. I didn't even realize fish could get that big in and around these waters. Still unsure whether this was just a rock or a dead fish of sorts, but too afraid to shine my light on it, I decided I was going to touch it with the toe of my boot. My first thought was that I was going to feel hard rock beneath me, only to realize the darkness had played a trick on my mind. I lift up my boot and press it on the dark silhouette, but what I felt wasn't hard rock. It was flesh. My first reaction was a little bit of shock, because if this wasn't a rock like I originally thought, then it was something else, and had once been alive. Almost afraid to shine my light on whatever this was, I finally work up the courage to do it. Hoping this really is just a very big fish, I reluctantly shine my light on the dark fleshy thing. But what the light reveals is something else. It was a seal. A dead seal pup. Seal carcasses do occasionally wash up in this region, and it wasn't even the first time I saw one. But as I studied this dead seal with my flashlight, feeling my own skin crawl as I did it, I suddenly noticed something alarming. This seal pup had a chunk of flesh bitten out of it. For all I knew, this poor seal pup could have been hit by a boat, and that's what caused the wound. But the wound was round and basically a perfect bite shape. Depending on the time of year, there are orcas around these waters, which obviously hunt seals, but this bite mark was no bigger than what a fully grown seal could make. Did another seal do this? I know other animals will sometimes eat their young, but I never heard of seals doing this. But what was even worse than the idea that this pup was potentially killed by its own species was that this little seal pup was missing its skull. Not its head. Its skull. The skin was all still there, but it was empty, lying flat down against the sand. Just when I think this night can't get any creepier, I leave the seal to continue making my way back. When I come across another dark silhouette in the sand ahead, I go towards it, and what I find is another dead seal pup. But once more, this one also had an identical wound, a fatal bite mark. And just like the other one, the skull was missing. I could accept they'd either been killed by a boat, or more likely from the evidence, an attack from another animal. But how did both these seals with the exact same wounds in the exact same place also have both of their skulls missing? I didn't understand it. These seals hadn't been ripped apart. They only had 2 bite marks between them. Would the seal, or seals that killed them, really remove their skulls? I didn't know. I still don't, but what I do know is that both these carcasses were identical. Completely identical, which was strange. They had clearly died the same way. I more than likely knew how they died. But what happened to their skulls? As it happens, it's actually common for seal carcasses to be found headless. Apparently, if they have been tumbling around in the surf for a while, the head can detach from the body before washing ashore. The only other answer I could find was scavengers. Sometimes other animals will scavenge the body and remove the head. What other animals that was, I wasn't sure, but at least now, I had more than one explanation as to why these seal pups were missing their skulls. Even if I didn't know which answer that was, although I had now reasoned out the cause of these missing skulls, it still struck me as weird as to how these seal pups were almost identical to each other in their demise. Maybe one of them could lose their skulls, but could they really both? I suppose so. Although carcasses washing ashore is very common to this region. Growing up most of my life in Yorkshire, England, where nothing ever happens, and suddenly moving to what seemed like the edge of the world, and finding mutilated remains of animals you only ever saw in zoos. Of this stays with you.